he's acknowledged this publicly, he based his program on our work, that 9 in 10 people who had early to moderate dementia showed significant improvement in their cognitive function in just 3 to 6 months. A large-scale study that was done in Finland called the Finger Study, which was a randomized controlled trial of men 60 to 77, found that just basically diet, exercise, cognitive training, vascular risk monitoring helped to slow the rate of decline in people who had Alzheimer's disease. So just like we found in the cardiac studies, moderate changes could slow the rate at which you get worse. We think big changes can actually make it get better. This is another study. They're going to replicate that in this country, the Finnish study. They're spending, a couple $100 million on this. But I think the problem is that 20 million is the initial funding, but it's going to be much more than that, is that they don't go far enough. It's the ounce of prevention and pound of cure. You're trying to reverse disease. It takes a lot more than it does to prevent it or to slow down the rate at which you get worse. And that's what we're doing in our study. And also from a more spiritual standpoint, it allows physicians and health professionals to really reclaim why most of us went into medicine in the first place, which is to be of service and to relieve suffering and to help people. If you have to see a new patient every 8 minutes or 10 minutes, you don't really have time to talk about what matters most. You don't have time to talk about what's going on with your job and your school and your kids and their diet, their lifestyle, and all these various things. But now we have 72 hours. But the doctor isn't spending very much of his or her time. It's mostly done by these other people under the doctor's supervision. So it's really helping to create a whole new paradigm of healthcare based on lifestyle medicine. If you're interested in learning more, go to our website. It's all free. My wife, Anne, developed the whole thing, which is it's really brilliant. And this new study that we're doing, where we're interested in recruiting 100 men and women who live in the Bay Area here, who have early to moderate Alzheimer's, who are living around here. We're doing it through our nonprofit institute, also with the Memory and Aging Center, with Bruce Miller and Joel Kramer, who are the directors of that, as well as people at CPMC and Jonathan Arts at Kaiser and others. So, like I say, if you're interested, we have a table over there. Colin Kemp can give you information on that. Everything's free. And what we're going to do is we're going to randomly assign people to 2 groups, but both groups are going to get the program. One just has to wait 4 months while the other one gets it, because we can't do everybody at once. So we'll test for both groups at the beginning. We'll do PET scans to look at amyloid plaques, MRIs to look at brain size, hippocampal volume, cognitive function testing, and a few blood tests to look at biomarkers. One group will go through our program 3 times a week, just like we've been doing with the heart disease people. And the other group 1 will test both groups after 4 months, then we'll cross over the group that didn't get it. So they'll have it for 4 months. The first group will get it for 4 additional months, and then we'll repeat the testing again after 8 months and compare them. Now that doesn't seem like a very long time, but I think if the intervention is intense enough, I think it's going to be long enough. That's what we found in our earlier studies. And we're going to do all these various tests and so on. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the real epidemic isn't just heart disease or diabetes or Alzheimer's, it's loneliness and depression. In fact, just last couple months ago, in the UK, they appointed the first Minister of Loneliness. I was working with Vivek Murthy when he was Surgeon General before Donald Trump fired him. His 2 areas of interest were going to be loneliness and depression and nutrition. Because there's a growing awareness that there's been a radical shift in our culture in the last 50 years with the breakdown of the social networks that used to give us a sense of connection and community. 50 years ago, most of you are old enough to remember that many people had 2 or 3 generations of people in their neighborhood. They had a job that felt secure that you've been at for 10 years or more. Most of your coworkers were there. They had a church or synagogue that you went to regularly. They had an extended family you saw regularly. And many people have none of those things. And you might say, well, so what? Well, the so what is that study after study has shown that people who are lonely and depressed are 3 to 10 times more likely to get sick and die prematurely than those who have a sense of love and connection and community. 3 to 10 times. I don't know anything in medicine, even smoking, that has that powerful an impact. And yet it's not something we really pay that much attention to until now. I think many people are. And the reason is that, and I wrote a book about this 20 years ago called Love and Survival that reviewed what were then hundreds, and there are thousands of studies that talk about that. And I think the reason is that, we are interconnected. And one of the great things about growing up in an extended family or a neighborhood with 2 or 3 generations of people is that they know you. They don't just know your Facebook profile or your bio sketch. When I got introduced, that wonderful introduction, she didn't talk about all the mistakes I made and all the windows I broke when I was a kid and all that stuff. And so There actually a study just came out recently that showed the more time you spend on Facebook, the more depressed you are. And the reason is because it's not real intimacy. There are over 2 billion people on Facebook. There's such a hunger for that sense of connection and community that people gravitate to that it's not real intimacy in most cases, because people, looks like everybody has this perfect life but you. It's like, what's wrong with you? Because people only post, these wonderful things that are happening to them. I mean, there's exceptions to that, but for the most part. And so to have a place where you can be seen, kind of like an avatar, like I see you, which is really an African proverb, to be seen warts and all, and to still be there for you. There's something really primal about that. So our support groups are not really designed to help people stay on the diet or types of running shoes. We create a safe environment where people can be open and authentic. And we've learned that it's our feelings that connect us. Maya Angelou once famously said, people remember how you made them feel, they won't remember what you said. And let me give you an example of that really quickly. Would you just do a little quick exercise with me? You don't have to get up or anything. Just close your eyes for a moment. And tell me how you feel when I say the following. I think you're a jerk and I think you're wrong. Now open your eyes. Did that feel good? Did it make you want to know why I thought you were a jerk? Probably not, right? Generally, I find that most people would, if that were real life, of course, even if it's a joke, but still, there's part of viscerally you kind of react. Most people feel attacked or judged, right? Yeah. Don't you feel that way? Now, when you feel that way, most people generally either attack back, I'm not a jerk, you're a jerk, or they withdraw. Either they stop listening, they tune you out, or they literally leave. Now, if intimacy is healing, that obviously takes us in the wrong direction. Okay, let's try it differently. Close your eyes again. Tell me how this feels. I feel angry, I feel upset. Same or different? Different. Now, open your eyes. Now, why? We're not making nice, it's not the power of positive thinking. It's like, I'm angry, I'm upset. Those are, quote, negative emotions, and you have to actually draw you in. And you want to know probably, why do I feel that way, right? Why is that? Because the first was a thought, and thoughts tend to get viewed as criticisms or judgments. The second is a feeling. And it may sound so touchy-feely, here in Marin County, it's all touchy-feely, and it's so easy to make fun of, but it's true. We are touchy-feely creatures. We're creatures of community. That's how we survived as a species. We are interconnected. And so in our support groups, it's a very simple thing. We create a safe environment, so what goes in the group stays in the group. We say, focus on what you're feeling, and then express it as a feeling. And then somebody might say, gosh, I look like the perfect dad, but my kid's on heroin. Use an extreme example. And someone else instead of saying, oh, well, gosh, why don't you send him to the drug rehab program, which only makes you feel more isolated, to say, what am I feeling? I feel, oh, that's so sad. I'm so sorry to hear that. Or, gosh, my kid has another problem. Or, gosh, I used to have a drug problem. Whatever happens to these, suddenly it doesn't change the fact that the kid's on heroin, but it changes everything in terms of you're feeling isolated and ashamed and guilty and all of that. And it's so meaningful for people because that need for connection and community is a fundamental, primal human need that's as fundamental to me as eating and drinking and sleeping and breathing. And yet it so often goes unfulfilled. And so that's why people often, getting back to the cause, why do we, smoke and overeat and drink so much and work too hard and abuse substances? I asked the patients in our study, I'd say, these behaviors seem so maladaptive, why do you do that? And they'd look at me and they go, you don't get it, you don't have a clue. These behaviors aren't maladaptive, they're very adaptive because they help us deal with our loneliness, our depression, our isolation, our pain. And one person said, I've got 20 friends in this pack of cigarettes and they're always there for me, nobody else is. You're going to take away my 20 friends? What are you going to give me? Or food fills that void, or fat coats my nerves and numbs the pain, a well-known food writer told me, or video games numb the pain, or working all the time is a more socially acceptable way of dealing with pain, or opioids, or whatever drugs, And so it's not enough to give people information. It's not like I tell somebody, hey, quit smoking, it's bad for you. They go, well, I didn't know that, I'll quit today. It's like everybody knows it's bad for you. So we have to say, why do you smoke? Why do you do these things? And then when we do that, we find that people are much more likely to make lifestyle choices that are life-enhancing than ones that are self-destructive. Transforming isolation into intimacy is really healing. Even the word healing comes from the word to make whole. Yoga comes from the Sanskrit, to yoke, to unite, union. These are really old ideas that we're rediscovering. As I mentioned, information is not enough. Now, 6 months after a heart attack, those that were depressed were 4 times more likely to be dead, not just quality of life, dead, than those that weren't. I don't know anything in medicine that has that kind of impact. They did a study at Yale where they gave people a questionnaire before they did an angiogram to see how much blockage they had in their arteries. And they found that those that reported having the most loving love and support from their spouse had far fewer blockages in their arteries, independent of their diet, their cholesterol, or any other factors. When you're depressed, your immune system is depressed. People who are HIV positive that are depressed are more than twice as likely to develop HIV positive and AIDS and die from it than those who aren't. So these are things that are really life-changing. And in the military, I've given the matriculation lecture at this place called the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which I never heard of. It turns out this is where they train the elite of all the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and Coast Guard, future generals and Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I learned there, the second year I gave it, that more soldiers have died from suicide than in combat. Yeah. And that's how I got interested in this. When I was in college years ago, I was profoundly and suicidally depressed, and so I know what that's like, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But one veteran kills themselves every hour, 24 hours a day. One active duty soldier kills themselves every day, 365 days a year. So I decided to talk about the power of love at the Army War College, which had a bit of a Dr. Strangelove quality to it. And I knew if I went there as kind of a West California doctor, I'd have no street cred. So I'd given a TED talk right before Sam McChrystal, who's a 4-star general, I asked him would he make a video that I could show there, and he did. And the second time I did it, third time I did it actually, was with former 4-star Admiral Eric Olson, who was a real guy's guy, who was in charge of all special forces worldwide, the Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Delta Force, Green Berets, and so on. I figured if he could make a talk on the power of love, that would have a lot more credibility than if I did, which he did. And it was beautiful. I'm going to show it to you. It's just a couple minutes long, because it really talks about not just what's happening in the military, but in everything. And this, our program is really a love-based program. That's why it works so well. And I think that's really what the epidemic and what people are searching most for. So let me just play this for you real quick.
Hey, greetings to all of you.